Hi, this year is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 13 mission, often referred to as Houston, we have a problem, or failure is not an option mission. I thought we should take a break from our Artemis lectures and let's revisit the 4 days that I spent at Houston Mission Control during the Apollo 13 mission. Stay tuned. I think you'll enjoy the insider's view of what was really going on at Houston Mission Control. Welcome to Reaching for the Moon. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ed Grace, and I'm going to be your host. I worked on the Apollo project for 10 years while at MIT, and I was on the Apollo 13 mission operations team awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Since the Apollo 13 mission took place during April 1970, it was only fitting that the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation would schedule an Apollo 50th anniversary celebration, which would be held April 2020 at Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex under the Saturn rocket. Jim Lovell and Fred Haise, Apollo 13 astronauts, along with 400 other guests, would gather to celebrate the event. As a recap of the mission, there was an explosion of an oxygen tank in Apollo 13's service module on its journey to visit the moon, 200,000 miles from Earth. The command module systems had to be shut down to conserve its remaining resources for re-entry, forcing the crew to transfer to the lunar module as a lifeboat. With the lunar landing canceled, mission controllers worked to bring the crew home alive. Although the lunar module was designed to support 2 men on the lunar surface for 2 days, Mission Control in Houston improvised new procedures so it could support 3 men for 4 days. The crew experienced great hardship caused by limited power, a chilly and wet cabin, and a shortage of potable water. There was a critical need to adapt the command module's carbon dioxide scrubber system cartridges, which were rectangular, to work in the lunar module, whose cartridges were circular. The crew and mission controllers were successful in improvising a solution using, of all things, duct tape. The story of Apollo 13 has been dramatized many times, most notably in the 1995 movie Apollo 13. Let's get back to the Apollo 13 celebration. The black cloud that was attached to the Apollo 13 mission since its beginning surfaced again in the form of the COVID-19 virus and forced the event to be rescheduled for October 2020. That little black cloud did not go away and actually turned into a major thunderstorm, forcing the October event to become a virtual event using Zoom over the internet. John Zarrella of CNN was the moderator, along with guests Jim Lovell and Fred Haise, and Jerry Griffin, who was an Apollo 13 flight director. Jim Lovell shared a couple of stories that night, which I'd like to share with you today. Jim had to do a manual burn to put the spacecraft into a return to Earth orbit, using the moon's gravity to slingshot the Apollo 13 spacecraft back toward Earth. Let me point out a few of the issues he faced. For the burn, the service module, command module, and lunar module were all connected as one. The lunar module engines were going to be used to do the burn. They were aligned through the center of gravity of the lunar module when it was unattached to any other device. The mass of the unit was not known. Jim had to learn how to fly this piece of spacecraft in space very quickly. He commented on how fast he did learn, even though when he tried to turn left, it really didn't move left. When he tried to turn right, it didn't move right. Likewise for up or down. This was a tribute to his ability as a test pilot. The burn was perfect and sent the Apollo 13 spacecraft around the moon and back towards Earth. Jim also said that as they got closer to re-entry, he kept pushing Houston for the procedures to repower up the command module In fact, you could tell by the tone of his voice that the crew was getting a little upset with Houston in not providing the power-up sequence, which, by the way, had never been done before on any mission. I happen to be involved in that process and have a short story to relate. We live in Naples, Florida, which has an international film festival every year. 4 or 5 years ago, the feature film was Last Man on the Moon, which is the biography of astronaut Gene Cernan. On opening night of the festival, that documentary was shown and Gene was present in Naples. There was a reception held for Gene before the film was shown on opening night. My wife Sandy and I were invited. I walked into the room where Gene was seated and walked up to him and I reintroduced myself. I said, "Hi Gene, I'm Ed Grace from MIT." He immediately responded, "Did I remember the last time we had spoken?" I said, "Gene, I don't remember who I was talking to out in the hall just before I came into this room." He said, "Hey, it was on Apollo 13. He was in the simulator, and I was on the phone calling out to him the steps to repower the command module, which we were verifying before sending the procedure up to the Apollo 13 crew." My wife, Sandy, and I were both shocked. Anyway, the power-up procedure was finally sent to Jim Lovell, and the rest is history. Lastly, I would like to share a small clip with you of the Apollo 13 re-entry. The explosion occurred in the service module. The re-entry heat shield is enclosed in the service module during most of the flight. After the service module is separated, the command module will then re-enter the atmosphere. There's no way to test it or view it prior. A big question mark was, had the heat shield been damaged during this explosion? During re-entry, voice communication is normally lost for about 3 minutes. This is due to ionization around the command module as it's re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. The longest voice communication lost prior to Apollo 13 had been 3 minutes. I have a clip that I'd like to share with you for the re-entry of Apollo 13. Here's the clip.
Hey, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Can say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
It was plagued by bad omens and bad luck from the very beginning.
Looks good here, flight. Good agreement.
Years before the flight, when the spacecraft was being built, a damaged liquid oxygen tank was installed in the spacecraft. The tank had been dropped on the factory floor. A little piece of plumbing and prevented the normal procedure for removing oxygen after a routine test prior to the flight. And then on the day before flight, we filled up the tank again with liquid oxygen, and it was a bomb waiting to go off.
This is the crew of Apollo 13. Wishing everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our section of Aquarius and get back to a pleasant evening at Odyssey. Good night.
Actually, it was the end of the workday. We were fixing to go to bed after we did a few things to clean up, and the next morning go into lunar orbit and get ready to land. Then there was a large bang.
When the explosion first occurred, we didn't know what happened.
And that just rang through the metallic structure.
Houston, we've had a problem.
I was in the lunar module, and then I went down into the command module.
We may have had an instrumentation problem, flight. Roger.
And we had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning there.
We started to look at the instrument panels. One of the quantity gauges of one of the tanks was 0. That was the tank that had blew. I then looked out the window and saw escaping at a high rate of speed a gaseous oxygen, because the explosion occurred on the damaged tank, but that also ruptured the second tank, just blew the entire side of the spacecraft off.
My immediate feeling was just a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach of disappointment. I knew we had lost the landing.
And from then on, it was not a third landing on the moon, but a survival of how to get home.
Okay, I want you to double check my arithmetic to make sure we got a good course of line.
Go flight. How's the arithmetic? Stand by, we're checking.
At the time, it's scary as the devil, and we were handling something that we
The command module was very wet. There was water everywhere. In the LEM, there's no inner walls, so you could see water on all the connectors, wire bundles, plumbing, every turn of glob of water. And the command module, we actually had to get towels out to wipe off the instrument panel to see the instruments.
We copied that report from Jim Lovell of service module separation at 138 hours.
And there's one whole side of that spacecraft missing.
Is that right? Okay, copy that. Farewell, Aquarius, and we thank you.
So it was a question of getting this entire world geared and oriented to one single job: get the crew home.
Teamwork was necessary. Good leadership, initiative to think outside of the box. When things go wrong, how do we repair them? Those are the three things that were absolutely necessary.
I was most proud of being in this team that knew what they had to do, and there was no doubt about it. The team completely faced up to what had to be done. In this case, it was a survival challenge that we were faced with. So there you are, we pulled that off.
I use this clip in most of my Apollo presentations. I've seen it more than 100 times. Yet, every time I've seen it, including today, I get goosebumps every time I view that clip. With that, I'd like to close today's video presentation. If you like today's presentation, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. That way you're going to receive an email every time Reaching for the Moon posts a new video. Thank you for watching, and remember always, failure is not an option. Bye.